So as I mentioned earlier, we took this shot right here and we created a duplicate of it in our timeline. I thought to myself, you know what, this shot would be a lot better if it had some motion graphics on top of it to really make it exciting, because we have the motion graphics before it and the speed ramp after it. So here we have this shot, and I've used Option to drag a copy of it up to my 5th video row, and I'm going to go ahead and send this shot to After Effects. Now, one thing I want to note, this is not going to be an After Effects tutorial. We're going to open After Effects, we're going to look at it, but we're not going to do anything in there. This is just demonstrating how to move things between Premiere and After Effects. So before I send things to After Effects, it's really important to prepare our timeline for After Effects workflows. And the first thing about preparing your timeline is organization. It's all about good, smart organization. Planning ahead, organizing your timeline so that things don't get lost in confusion and that you don't end up with too many assets that you have a hard time keeping track of. So we moved this video clip up to what's now called Video 5, and we're going to relabel. So I'm going to right click and rename this, and we'll call this to After Effects. This way I know that any of the clips that are in this video track need to be sent to After Effects. And because we're going to create a clip in After Effects and it's going to link it back into Premiere, I might even move this up one more, make another video track, rename it, and say From After Effects, just to keep things really clean and organized in case I have a lot of shots in my timeline that need to go back and forth. So let me go ahead and open up After Effects here. And here we are in a blank new After Effects project. Now, it's important to note that whatever project file you have open for After Effects is the one that Premiere is going to link to, and it won't give you a choice of which one to link it to when you send it. So you want to make sure that you have the After Effects project open that you want to work in. Otherwise, Premiere is going to dump footage into whatever project is open right now. In this case, I have a blank new project, which is perfect for us. So I'm going to go back to Premiere. There are two ways that we can send things from Premiere to After Effects. The first of those two ways is dynamic linking. And what's going to essentially happen is when I select this clip and dynamic link it to After Effects, it's going to remove it from my timeline and replace it with an After Effects project file, otherwise known as an After Effects comp. This is why I create a duplicate at a higher video level, because I don't want to replace the one that's at the bottom. This one here I want to keep as a copy just in case I still need it in the future. So this one is going to be replaced with an After Effects composition. Let me go ahead and right click on it, and I can say replace with After Effects composition. It's going to ask me where to save my blank After Effects project. And here we go, we have a new composition here with some assets from Premiere brought into it, and there's our clip. So this is just one example. Let me send something else so you can see this happen a second time. Let me go back to Premiere, and this time let me open up a blank sequence. I'm going to go to my footage, I'm going to grab some footage from our promo, just a couple of clips, just these top 3. Drop them in, get rid of the audio for a second. This is just demonstration purposes. I'm going to spread them out, and I don't care what they are. I'm just going to find a couple of seconds of each one, just so you can see an example here of what's going to happen. So I have these 3 clips in my timeline, and I'm going to put them all back together. So close this gap and close this gap here. And I have this roughly 10-second long piece of footage, and it's this shot of me sitting down. Then there's me sitting there kind of shuffling myself around on the couch. And then there's a shot of what I'm looking at on the computer screen here. So here's the thing. I want to send this shot to After Effects, and I also want to send this shot to After Effects. I want to do 2 completely different animations. Let's just say, for example, on this shot here, what I want to do is I want to have a little text pop up that says that this is the computer screen and that I'm looking at something important on the screen. And on this shot here, right here, I want to have a different example of what's on the screen. I'm going to actually replace the image on the computer screen because I realized after I filmed this that this is the wrong image to have on the screen for the demonstration that we're creating. Again, a hypothetical situation, but totally something you might run into. Now, here's the situation. If I were to send both of these to After Effects, what's going to happen is that they are going to make one dynamically linked comp that is the entire length of both shots. But the thing is, as you know in editing, we may decide at some point that this shot here and this shot here don't need to go back to back, that perhaps there needs to be a shot in between. For example, let me just open this up and just kind of scan over here. Maybe I want to have this in point and this out point, and I want to drag this in and put it in between them. Now, because they are separate clips as pieces of footage in our timeline, I can very easily put things between them, and it won't break anything. But if I were to go ahead and just remove this for a second, and take both of these, I'm going to hold Option, drag them up, and I'm going to select both of them now, right-click, and do Replace with After Effects Composition. You'll see that it loads up After Effects, and it puts those two clips into one single composition here, and that they have an edit point. So this is the first clip that we saw in our timeline, and this down here is the second clip that we saw in our timeline. And if I go back to Premiere, now you can see that it has created one dynamic link with both clips inside of it. Now I could, of course, make an edit here and separate these. Essentially, this is the exact same thing. But what happens in After Effects if I change the timing of something? Let me hop back to After Effects and show you here, if I were to expand this and make it longer, that makes the length of this shot longer on top of the previous shot that used to be there. And when I click Save and head back to Premiere, now the length of that should actually be going into this side of the edit. And there it is. So there's more of this shot in here. This is why we wouldn't want to send both of these together horizontally. We'd want to make sure that whatever we send to After Effects, if we want to send multiple clips, we stack them vertically. So here's what I mean by that. Let me just undo all of this work. I'm going to undo sending them to After Effects, and I have these two clips here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to individually send each one to After Effects. I'll right-click on the first one, do Replace with After Effects Composition. There it is. Now this is just the one shot that we just sent in to After Effects in its own composition. And I'm going to tab back over to Premiere. And this one now is the second shot. I'll just right-click and do Replace with After Effects Composition. Same thing, I now have this shot as its own independent composition in After Effects. And when I head back to Premiere here, now you can see I have two independent clips, just like this. And they fit on top of the clip that we sent, and this is why we duplicated that clip, so that when we send it, we don't accidentally overwrite it in our timeline, just in case we ever have to go back to it in the future. Now, let me just do another demonstration so that this becomes really clear why we do it this way. I'm going to just undo all of that work. I'm going to keep this how it was. I'm going to separate these clips, and I'm going to go ahead and take this shot here and cut it in between them, just like this. I'm going to close them back up, get rid of this audio, we don't need this. And here we have a situation where we have this clip right here, which needs some work done in After Effects, and this clip right here, which also needs some work done in After Effects. Now, what I wouldn't want to do is select both of these and choose right-click, Replace with After Effects Composition. Let me show you why. So here we go. It's brought in the first clip, and then a gap, and then the second clip. This gap right here is the length of this shot, and it's created one dynamically linked composition with a gap in the middle of it. Now, this works. Technically, it's okay, but what if I decide, oh, actually, what I want to do is move this shot over a little bit and give myself a little bit more time at the back of this shot? Well, all of a sudden, the alignment is all wonky. And this is why when you send things to After Effects, you want to make sure to send one clip at a time, or if you need to send multiple clips to After Effects, and you know that you need them to take up a certain amount of time on your timeline, you want to stack them vertically as opposed to horizontally. Otherwise, you're going to make the length of your composition longer than it needs to be, and it may interrupt your editing workflow in the future. See, the way that these dynamically linked comps work is that they are a direct link into what you see inside of After Effects. So let me demonstrate exactly what I mean by that by just undoing this here. So I'm going to have these two shots. Now I have this shot here where I want to add some text, and I have this shot here where I want to replace the computer screen. Let me just take this one, for example, and I'll just send this one shot to After Effects. And I'm going to very quickly, inside of After Effects, just mock up a quick text graphic. And there we go. I've just typed in computer screen with a little box around it, and it's above the computer screen. And we could spend a lot more time doing some work on this, but for now, this is just a good example of what's going to happen when I push Save, or File Save, then come back to Premiere, And there it is. Right there in Premiere is exactly what we just did in After Effects. It is a direct link. And if I were to go back to After Effects now and say change the color of the words computer screen to a different color, let me show you what happens. Now it's going to be bright green, and I'll change it and I'll say save. And I'm going to go back to Premiere. And right away it changes exactly what we did in After Effects, and it shows up right in Premiere. And then this is another reason why I like to duplicate my clips up before I send them, because now if I have a really complicated animation in After Effects that takes a long time to render, I can go ahead and right-click on this and just uncheck Enable. This way I can see the original footage that was underneath it before it was sent to After Effects, and I can play back my timeline pretty smoothly, but the link to After Effects is still there. So when I'm ready to do my final export, I can always right-click, enable the animation again, and it will turn back on without really affecting anything. This is a really fast and efficient way to work between Premiere and After Effects. Now, sometimes you might have a situation where you have already sent a clip to After Effects, like this one, and you say to yourself, you know, I also wanted to send something else into this exact same composition. Well, there is now a second way that we can get things from Premiere to After Effects. And since I don't want to make another dynamic linked comp, I want to bring an asset from my Premiere timeline into this comp here. I can do that by simply selecting the asset. Let's just say this right here, this clip, and I can go over here and I can copy. I'm going to head over to After Effects, and I can come up to Edit, and I can say Paste. And it's going to bring in that extra clip. Now, if you don't know too much about After Effects, what happened here is that I see the outlines of the part of the clip that's not in use. So I'm going to zoom out using the minus key on the timeline. And there is the clip that we pasted. And it pasted it at 8:12. That's because it appears at 8 seconds and 12 frames in our Premiere timeline. If this clip existed at 35 minutes into our Premiere timeline, it would have pasted it at the 35-minute mark in After Effects. It's just a little quirk about how Premiere and After Effects copying and pasting works. All you have to do is simply move it back in place, line it up. I'm going to go to the back of my clip in my timeline, and I'm going to use my After Effects shortcut key N to end the work area. And I can right-click on the work area and say Trim Comp to Work Area. Again, not an After Effects tutorial, just a quick little note about the quirks between Premiere and After Effects. And just to further demonstrate, I'm going to add a new asset to this scene. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to add a graphic. Let's just say a red square to indicate that this table looks really good. So let me just go ahead and make a new shape layer. And I'll quickly make a red square. So I'll make a square. I will select this here. And maybe this is what I wanted, a red square right here. And I'll make a white stroke around it. And that looks great. I think this is an amazing graphic. Obviously, this is not great, but we're going to pretend like it's great. I'm going to go ahead and click Save and head back to Premiere. And now that red square appears in my composition. So again, whatever I do in After Effects is going to appear in Premiere. And it's really important to keep your assets still available to you in Premiere in case you want to disable the After Effects work that you're doing. So I can right-click on this clip and uncheck the Enable key. And now it removes the clip. The clip is disabled in my timeline, so I won't see it and it won't render. And here is the original media that was underneath it that had originally been sent to After Effects. This lesson is going to have some homework. First, create a dynamic link between one clip in your timeline with After Effects. Next, create a dynamic link between multiple clips in your timeline with After Effects. Remember that if you want the dynamically linked comp to only take up a certain amount of space on your timeline, you have to stack the clips vertically. Otherwise, the dynamically linked clip will take up the entire time of the clips you have spread out horizontally on the timeline. Finally, copy a clip from your timeline into the linked After Effects project. Coming up in the next lesson, we're going to be working with PSD files from Photoshop.